Hello, ladies and gents. My name is Marcus Morris, and I'm coming back at you again with the fourth chapter of my book, Life and the Art of Deprogramming, a brief look at the universe from inside the human mind. So, this is chapter 3, the Tower of Babel. So, in chapter 3, I have to refer to my notes. Why did man, or humans rather, build a tower, called the Tower of Babel, to heaven to, I think, metaphorically reach God? I don't think they literally meant to go there, because as you can see, there's many skyscrapers on Earth today that are meant to rise to extremely great heights, but no person thinks they're actually gonna get to heaven when they get there. They know they're just going very, very high up. So I think people were not too much dumber than they are today, or rather say less intelligent than they are today. So I'm pretty sure that the concept of heaven meant more of like a metaphorical height at what they're building. So when this tower was built, there were people on Earth during those days who were one. They were unified. They spoke the same language, which means they were able to communicate information ceaselessly, easily, and without very many obstacles, such as a language barrier. So they were unified. So they wanted to build this tower to prevent the scattering of these unified people from across the face of the earth. So when I was writing this and reading it over again, it seems as if they were doing this as a preemptive method to prevent God from scattering them across the earth. So they said that this is our unifying force here. We are one people, so let's build this tower. And in doing so, they would be able to stay unified. Because as one unified people who are able to spread information ceaselessly, they will keep that knowledge and power between themselves. Like they say, united we're stronger, divided we are weak. And these people knew that at this time. So I want to quote Genesis 11 so that we get exactly what was said there. This is done, and it's not the King James version. It's one of the newer editions here. The whole world had only one language. All the people spoke it. They moved to the east and found a broad valley in Babylonia. There they settled down. They said to each other, "Come, let us make bricks and bake them well." They used bricks instead of stones. They used tar to hold the bricks together. Then they said, "Come, let us build a city for ourselves. Let's build a tower that reaches the sky. We'll make a name for ourselves. Then we won't be scattered over the face of the whole earth." So they made a name for themselves, so therefore they become like a nation. Like you have Spain, you have America, you have Italy. And in these countries, people speak one language, and they have a name where they call themselves Spaniards, Italians, Americans. So these were the Babylonians. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. The Lord said, "They are one people, and all of them speak the same language. That is why they can do this. Now they will be able to do anything." So, in that instance there, it seems that God, amongst others, because God did use the term, "Come, let us go down and mix up their language." So, when God says, "Come, let us go down and mix up their language," who are they? Who is up there with him to come down to mix up their language? And God says, then they will come, let us go down and mix up their language, and then they will not understand each other. So the Lord scattered them from there over the whole earth, and they stopped building the city. The Lord mixed up the language of the whole world there. That's why the city was named Babel. From there, the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. Genesis 11. So, why did God and his host seem, which they may call the Elohim, seem to be threatened by a city of people building a tower to the sky? Here are my thoughts. I'm going to give you my thoughts on that. I feel that what Bible is discussing is governance. It's a divide and conquer method. Let's just say you have a nation of people who are able to communicate freely amongst themselves and spread information. And in doing so, information is preserved, it evolves, is built upon. Like when you have, let's say you have a textbook that talks about, primitive mathematics. And from there, they would build upon that with multiplication. Then from there, you get algebra. Then you get trigonometry, and and so on and so forth. If you don't have knowledge and you can't spread the knowledge with the unifying factor called language, as one people, you cannot band together and become more powerful. And from there, I feel like God and his hosts did not want people to become like him. Because how could they respect him? How could he take charge if they were equal in power and knowledge? So in ruling over people, God came down and confused their languages and scattered them over the face of the earth to conquer and divide, which is the way you see the world as run today. For the most part, the world is conquered and divided. You have hundreds of nations across the earth speaking literally thousands of languages. I would like to hear what your thoughts are on that. Please leave a comment below and start a discussion. So as you can see on the cover of my book, there is an alien, which is sort of an allegory to the Anunnaki. So, who are the Anunnaki? The Anunnaki is described as those from heaven to earth came. So, if you believe in God, you inadvertently believe in an extraterrestrial. Extraterrestrial is any entity that is not of earth that has come down to earth to speak, live, move amongst us earthlings, us human beings. In the Sumerian text, you have the three main members of the Anunnaki are Enlil, Enki, and Namu. In Egyptian text is Isis, Osiris, and Horus. There are many other members to that host, to those hosts of heavenly angels, heavenly gods. Am I sure that these entities were extraterrestrials, let's say from another planet? I am not sure. But the Sumerian civilizations do talk about a host of beings who have come from heavens to earth to give human beings governance. They give them technology in some ways, architecture, the potter's wheel and a plow, our numerical system, our clocks that go from 1 to 60. The way we govern, the way we education have all came fully formed from the Anunnaki. These Anunnaki seem to be the same players in the Egyptian culture. And they have also seen to give us our religion. Our religious text comes from older sources. They comes from the Sumerian cuneiform. They come from the Egyptian Book of the Dead. And we take it for granted that our structure of society comes from these ancient sources. And then we have something called the Bible, which came from those ancient sources, and we take that for face value. I on the other hand, do not take the Bible at face value. I think the Bible, it just shows us texts from ancient sources that are put together to become canon-rich sources. They call these some of the sources that are no longer used. They call the Jewish pseudepigrapha. They call it apocrypha. And what I think the Anunnaki is, I think they are a source of government. They're a governing body. And the way they rule over people is by dividing and conquering, and which is the same way governing bodies rule over people today. If you had everybody speaking one language, let's say the whole earth spoke one language, was spreading information freely, and ignored our extremely minute differences, because usually a difference is like, oh, you worship Allah, I worship God, or you like this Hindu god, Ganesh, or you like Buddha. Like, these are things people fight over. Meanwhile, I hate to say it, but they're usually figments of our imagination. We all imagine God to be something different than what somebody else imagines God to be, because we all have our own brain, and we cannot possibly know what's going on in the next person's imagination. Unless you're clairvoyant, and I don't know who is and who isn't, but I am not clairvoyant. So I cannot know what God even looks like in your head, in your imagination, even if you are saying the same God's name. So these are things that people fight over. And this is what religion is based around today, a God in your imagination. So I think what religious text does is gives you these imaginary gods, and it governs you based on what you should be doing, because of religious texts is telling you to behave and act a certain way. And this is how we are controlled today. I would love to hear your feedback on that. Please leave some comments. I may do some live videos soon. I would love your input. I would love your participation. I would love you to agree and disagree with me. I love opposition. I would love to discuss these matters with you far deeper and more intricately. Thank you for listening. I'll talk to you very soon. See you in chapter 4.